Now the latest ITV News. It's Wales at 6 with Andrea Byrne.
On tonight's programme. A night of riots in Cardiff after 2 teenage boys are killed in a crash. Cars were set alight and fireworks launched at police as trouble flared for hours on the streets of Ely.
It was like watching something in a movie. You don't expect this to take place where you live in.
Tonight's CCTV emerges showing police following a bike moments before the crash, which is thought to have sparked the violence.
This footage is being recovered as part of the investigation and will assist us in piecing together the circumstances leading up to the collision.
Also on the programme, Jade Ward was strangled by an ex-partner. Tonight her dad vows to continue the fight to stop killers having a say in their children's lives from behind bars. And discovering the Tyvee, we're on the new nature trail for walkers to enjoy the wonders of the river. Hello, good evening to you. Cars ablaze, property vandalised and disorder on the streets. The Cardiff suburb of Ely is tonight in a tense mood after the death of 2 teenagers in a crash triggered violence last night. Within the last hour, South Wales Police have said they've referred themselves to the independent police watchdog and say they've seized footage of a powered bike being followed by a police van. But the force have stressed no police vehicles were directly involved in the crash. Our correspondent Dean Thomas Welch has spent much of the day there and joins us now live. Dean, what is the feeling there this evening?
Yes, well, Andrea, as you can see behind me, there are a number of people already gathering around 50 to 100 yards away from where we're positioned now, just up there. There is a vigil taking place for the 2 young boys who tragically lost their lives. Now, for residents of this estate in Ely, they'll be concerned that there's not a repeat of what happened last night tonight. And what happened last night was violence and a riot. A night of rage and destruction sparked by the death of 2 teenage boys. Kyrie Sullivan and Harvey Evans were killed while riding an electric bike on Snowdon Road in Ely yesterday evening. Within the community, sadness quickly turned to violence. What transpired was a riot which saw cars set alight, windows smashed and paving slabs and fireworks thrown at police, who struggled desperately to contain the chaos.
You couldn't describe last night. It took away all sense of hope for a future. The way people were behaving, jumping up in the street, rioting. But the thing about it is, it started out with 2 kids that tragically died. And it took away the sense of everything. You got families out there grieving for their kids, can't even get to see the bodies on the ground. And then you got young thugs jumping up and causing riot. It was like watching something in a movie. You don't expect this to take place, or whatever in your place where you live in.
It's thought between 100 to 150 people were involved in last night's disorder. They left behind streets more akin to a war zone. Well, many of the vehicles that were targeted in last night's riot still remain on this street behind me. You can see a taxi with its back window smashed out, and just a few yards from that, in this white car, well, there's not a single glass pane left in this car. All the windows have been targeted on this one. If you just follow me down here. Now, this is where a car was set alight. Now, that's been taken away, but what remains are these char marks on the road, and there's still a strong sense of smoke in the air. Now, much of the glass and the paving slabs, the destruction, the devastation, that's been cleared away. But what remains in this community are questions about how this riot happened and how it was allowed to escalate. Many in this community feel the police were to blame for what took place here. In response, the police say false rumours on social media of a chase that led to the crash which killed the 2 teenage boys fueled the disorder. They say the collision had already happened when they arrived at the scene around 6 p.m. Others living here say South Wales Police could have done more to curb the riot, which raged on into the early hours of this morning.
It's too scary to come out, you know, for some of it. But people's tempers were, you know, up there. I know it's because of a terrible shock, you know, for that to happen. But the thing was, all the rioting started down this street, and the accident was actually the other side of the railing. So, you know, it's a sad occasion, and you know, and I feel sorry for the parents. It's terrible.
It's believed up to 12 officers were injured during the riot. Reports also surfaced of a member of the public being attacked after being mistaken for an undercover police officer. A number of arrests were made, with police promising to make more. These are truly heartbreaking scenes, but they are all too familiar in South Wales in recent times. The same disbelief, the same destruction, the same questions being asked. Well, it's almost 2 years to the day of the Mayhill riots in Swansea. Now, a review into South Wales Police's handling of that incident was highly critical. Now there are questions about how South Wales Police have handled this incident. Now, there is CCTV doing the rounds on social media, which appears to show two people on an electric bike being followed by a police vehicle. Now, it seems that it was that CCTV which sparked last night's violence. Well, in the last hour, South Wales Police have given this update to the media.
I'd like to acknowledge the impact last night's disorder had on local residents, who were understandably very frightened. They have our assurances we will be doing our best to arrest all of those responsible. A number of arrests have already been made and more will follow.
Well, South Wales Police have referred themselves to the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and the atmosphere here tonight is still incredibly tense.
Dean, thank you. Well, Ely may be a few short miles from the centre of Cardiff, but it's one of the capital's poorest areas, with nearly 3/4 of people living there in some sort of deprivation. But it's a close-knit one too, with a history of working-class bonds. Our correspondent Hannah Thomas is at the community centre for us this evening. Hannah, how are people there reacting to what's happened?
Well, I think that even though we're 24 hours on now, Andrea, from the start of this, there's still a deep sense of shock and sadness in this community at the incidents which unfolded last night. As you say, Ely is not a wealthy community, but it is very rich in community spirit, and there will be people living here who hope they never see scenes like that again. Our national correspondent Rob Osborne has been speaking to residents here today.
What happened here last night? The answers aren't visible from the sky. They're only revealed on the ground.
What are we looking at here? Jane's car on fire.
Don't know what to say. The rioters come down from up the top of Wilson Road. They woke me up in the early hours, screaming and shouting and smashing my front windscreen in. Yeah.
Why do you need the car? Why is it important?
I got mobility issues. I can't get anywhere without my car.
And as someone who's been affected then, what would be your message to the community tonight who may be feeling quite
They
tense?
need to stop running around being angry and start thinking about the children who lost their lives yesterday and their families. Those families are going through hell and back. They don't need this. This is not helping them. It's not helping bring those kids back.
Ely going to bounce back from this?
Ely always bounces back.
It's not all of Ely that is bad, it's just the idiots that have kicked off. I've lived in Ely all my life, so I'm quite happy to stay here and carry on living here. I love living here.
The police were out this afternoon, as were the trucks. This used to be a caravan. The clean-up has largely concluded, but there is still a smell of burning rubber in the air. That was where a car was last night, till it was torched, one of many. So what's the lasting impact? Is there a lasting impact? Well, people tell me that Ely, yes, it has its problems, but where doesn't? They say it's a resilient community and it will bounce back. But Ely has been here before.
Up to 400 people were on the streets in Ely over the weekend, armed with stones and petrol bombs.
There were riots here in 1991. Local leaders say what resulted was Ely getting an unfair reputation.
Ely is the most wonderful community. The people are the warmest, most generous-hearted people you will find anywhere.
Are there any underlying issues in Ely which may have contributed to that flare-up of violence last night?
I would say one of the big issues in Ely is that young people, especially young lads, don't have any direction in life. And particularly when they leave school, there's nothing for them to channel into. And then who knows what triggers it, but just a little spark of something, and before you know, the whole thing ignites.
There is pride in Ely, but also concern. What no one wants is a repeat of this. Rob Osborne, ITV News.
Well, upon hearing the news, the MP for this area, Kevin Byrne, travelled from Westminster to Cardiff this afternoon, and he's just arrived in Ely to join me tonight. Kevin, you've been an MP for this constituency, Cardiff West, for 20 years. You've got to know the people here in Ely very well indeed. What is your reaction to all of this?
Well, first of all, this is a terrible tragedy. 2 young lives have been lost. There are families and friends grieving, and I know the overwhelming feeling of people here is of sadness at this terrible tragedy. So young, these young boys who died as a result of this traffic incident, and they're overwhelmingly, I think people are feeling sad about that, and they want to know exactly what happened, understandably.
Now, of course, those investigations will take place, but there's lots of speculation, as we've heard already tonight, that the police didn't handle this very well. What's your view on that?
So I think there has to be a proper independent investigation to the events that led up to the incident, as well as to the events that happened afterwards with the serious disorder that happened. And clearly the messaging we got today wasn't clear about the fact that there apparently now it's clear there was some kind of interaction between the police and the police van and the bikes involved, and we need to get to the bottom of that with an independent investigation.
Did the police do a good job or not?
Well, I think the communication has left something to be desired. I'm not going to criticise the police. A number of officers were injured as a result of the disorder that took place, but I do say that they need to be absolutely clear, open and transparent about what happened, because people do need to know the truth, and they deserve to know the truth of the events that took place.
And just quickly, Kevin, you know the history of this place. It's over 30 years since the last riot. How have we not learnt any lessons from history?
Well, I think many lessons have been learnt. We're standing next to the hub here in Ely. We've got a wonderful new high school here, but this is an area that does need more investment. It does need more support, and every one of us, the council, the police, all the local community should get involved in making sure that happens.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. Well, Andrea, it is quiet where I am here at the moment, and I think every resident in Ely will be hoping it stays that way tonight.
Hannah, thank you very much indeed. Well, we heard there from the local MP with pleas to the police, and politicians, including the Prime Minister, have condemned the violence and called for calm. In the Senate, members were granted an emergency question, which means it was discussed as an urgent priority. Our political editor, Adrian Masters, is there for us this evening. A sign, Adrian, of how seriously this is being taken in the Welsh Parliament.
Andrea, responsibility for a whole set of areas is shared, as Hannah was just discussing with Kevin Brennan. Policing is involved, and that's the responsibility of the UK government in Westminster, and other aspects, other emergency services, community services. That's the responsibility of the Welsh government here in Cardiff, and that's why Senedd members wanted to have their say and raise questions. I'll give you a flavour of what was said. You'll see a range of opinions and questions, starting with the Social Justice Minister, Jane Hutt.
I would call for calm and for people to support the police and other agencies involved in supporting the local community.
Will you support me in wishing that the agencies of the law bring forward anyone they can identify so that the full force of the law can be brought against them?
People are terrified, saying that they are still worried that this could escalate further. And what I would want to ask is what discussions have taken place to provide reassurance to those in the community that suffered last night. They were terrified in their homes and obviously dealing with the tragic loss of 2 young people.
I've already met with the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Wales, Alan Michael, for an update on this incident, and the First Minister has also been briefed.
And as I mentioned, Adrian, a condemnation from Downing Street too.
That's right. The Prime Minister's spokesman said what happened, particularly the attacks on police officers, was appalling and unacceptable, and that we remain grateful to the emergency services and first responders for all their support to the community in restoring order. And as we've been discussing, decision making is shared between the 2 parliaments here and in Westminster. It's been discussed in the Senate today. Tomorrow, questions to the Welsh Secretary and Prime Minister's questions. I expect we'll hear more then.
I'm sure we will. Adrian, thank you. And there's more on this story on the ITV Evening News.
Coming up on the programme, calls for calm after riots in Cardiff overnight. Violence broke out after 2 teenagers were killed in a vehicle crash. Cars were set on fire with clashes between officers and the public. The disgraced entertainer Rolf Harris has died at the age of 93. Once one of the most popular showbiz stars, he was unmasked as a serial paedophile. And why these rare cats will be soon released onto Scotland's Highlands for the first time ever. Well, do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Mary with you shortly. Now, a grieving father says he's disappointed the law won't change to suspend the parental rights of his daughter's killer. Eddie Duggan's daughter, Jade, was killed by her estranged husband, Russell Marsh, but he still controls what their children can do and where they can go. Our reporter, Joanne Gallagher, has this exclusive report.
It's a real likeness.
Yeah, done well.
A permanent reminder of a much-loved daughter etched on the skin of a grieving father who gets by one day at a time. Jade Ward was murdered by her estranged husband and the father of her 4 boys in August 2021. She was 27.
You're still allowed to say which school you go to, what dentist, whether they can go on holiday, whether they can't go on holiday. There's loads of other things that he can that he gets control of.
Last year, Russell Marsh was jailed for life with a minimum sentence of 25 years. But despite being behind bars, the law still allows him to control the lives of the children they had together.
Does that surprise you, Paul, that he can still have that control and responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah, it surprised me because everyone thought that it'd be automatic. Killer, parents should automatically have no rights, and we were all shocked that it hasn't happened.
From his Shotton home, this family friend has fought to change the law so parental responsibility would be removed from Jade's killer. But it's not been taken up by the UK government.
I'm the last person to ever want parental responsibility moved from any parent. But in this case, if that person deems it fit enough to murder the mother of the children, he hasn't got those children in his mind, foremost in his mind. So therefore, he should lose those rights.
A government spokesman told us that judges can remove power and responsibility from a parent who's murdered another, and they are looking at ways to make that process fairer and quicker. But Labour MP Mark Tammy says it's not happening quickly enough.
If you have just lost your daughter in a horrific crime, the law at the moment says you have to go back to court to face all that again in order to take those rights away. It should be the other way round.
Labour has said if it wins the next general election, it'll make the change. But Jade's family in Shotton say for now, they still have to ask the man who murdered their loved one for permission to do anything with the boys growing up without their mum. Joanne Gallagher, ITV News, Shotton.
Jade's father, Paul Ward, reflecting his thoughts about that campaign in that report. A former top Cardiff Bay lobbyist has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of distributing and 3 counts of making indecent images of children. Darren Hill had been a prominent member of the public affairs community in Wales and was involved in the campaign to establish the Senedd. Sean Jenkins reports.
Attempting to hide his face, Darren Hill arrived at Cardiff Magistrates Court this afternoon to plead guilty to 5 offences relating to indecent images of children. It's certainly a fall from grace for one of the most prominent former political lobbyists in Cardiff Bay. His involvement in Welsh politics goes back to the days of the devolution referendum in '97, during which he played his part in the Yes campaign as a national organiser.
I find it very curious.
He founded his own political consultancy in 2006 and was a regular commentator on political matters who mixed with politicians and political advisers alike. Darren Hill appeared here at Cardiff Magistrates Court today and pleaded guilty to all 5 counts against him relating to indecent images of children. The first 2 were for distributing a total of 10 Category A images via Kik and WhatsApp, and the final 3 were for making a total of 62 images ranging from Category A to Category C. Upon leaving court this afternoon, Darren Hill had this to say for himself. Mr. Hill, do you have anything to say following your guilty pleas today? Anything about the victims at all? Do you regret doing what you did now? So you do regret?
Yes.
And on his future in politics, he said this. Where do you think this leaves your career now, Mr. Hill?
Where the do you think my career is?
He'll appear at Cardiff Crown Court for sentencing on the 6th of June. Sean Jenkins, ITV News, Cardiff.
The Tyvi River straddles much of the border between Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion and is known for its stunning countryside and coracle fishing. But now a new path the length of the river is designed to show the Tyvi at its best. Here's our West Wales reporter, Lewis Rhys-Jones.
Over the past 2 years, a group of volunteers have worked enthusiastically on a new 75-mile walking route that will pass through some of the most beautiful and historic spots in Mid and West Wales.
We're a new association of volunteers, and since then we've been working hard to put it together. It is and will be almost in its entirety on public rights of way. What we are doing at this moment in time is ensuring that it is public safe.
To give you an idea of the walking trail's length, it starts at the source of the River Teifi, high up here in the Cambrian Mountains, before working its way down to Poppet Sands in Cardigan.
The main purpose of the trail is to introduce people to this wonderful part of Wales. The Mid-Wales area has historically been a quiet part of the country. There's also the additional benefit from the economic benefits that people will bring by spending money on accommodation, on catering and so forth.
Locals also feel hopeful about the trail's potential.
With footpaths, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And I think by opening up this is going to be a fantastic opportunity to promote other footpaths in the future.
As people who've been born and bred, we take everything for granted, but this will give a chance for the people who aren't so lucky to live in Ceredigion to come and visit us and see the beautiful towns and villages we've got to offer them here on this trail.
The Trail Association aim to launch the new path in the autumn, in hope that keen walkers and tourists will come and see what the Teifi Valley has on offer. Lewis Rhys-Jones, ITV News, Pontrhydd Fendigaid.
So the big question, do we have the weather for walking then, Ruth?
Absolutely. The Teifi Valley is always glorious, whatever the weather. And I know we've got school half-term coming next week. We've got the bank holiday weekend, which usually means the combination is that the weather is going to be absolutely horrific. But not a chance this time round. High pressure is dominating our weather story. It's good because it's deflecting all these nasties back out into the Atlantic and actually throwing an awful lot of wet weather down towards parts of the Med. So as I've been saying, don't plan to go anywhere. Just stay right here in Wales because the forecast for the next few days is shaping up very, very nicely indeed. Here are the details for you.
Transport for Wales. Proud sponsors of ITV Cymru Wales Weather.
Well, for much of Wales, it's a lovely evening, some beautiful sunshine out there. But if you look very closely, you can see that down across the Branly Brycheiniog, the hills and mountains in the south, there is a little bit of cloud which could bring a spot of drizzle. But we're not going to talk about it because I don't think you'll even notice it. And actually, any chance of any drizzle will fizzle out over the next few hours. And under lengthy clear skies developing tonight, the temperatures are going to take something of a tumble. So actually feeling a bit of a chill, certainly in more sheltered rural spots where we could dip to lows of around 5 or 6 Celsius. The winds will ease back all the while too, and this means the return of some mist and murk, which could be quite dense in places. It's all very normal for this time of year, and thankfully, because of the strength of the sunshine, it won't hang around for too long either. So any murk will fizzle away. We could see a little bit of high-level cloud bubbling up through northern areas, but on the whole, a bright and beautiful day in prospect. For much of Wales, almost cloudless skies, quite a contrast to the greys we've had out there today. Bit of a contrast developing in terms of temperature too. 15 and 16 out towards the west, where I think you'll notice that breeze. But further inland, we could hit the heights of 21 or 22 Celsius with high levels of UV wherever you are, so just be careful. The good news continues, more sunny and settled weather on Thursday. And as far as your outlook is concerned, well, sunny and settled weather all the way.
Trafnidiaeth Cymru yn falch I noddi tywyd ITV Cymru Wales.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
Well, the flip side to all this settled and sunny weather, of course, comes if you are suffering with hay fever. Grass pollen is just getting airborne, but because it is so settled, we're looking at generally moderate levels over the next few days. So there we go. Absolutely no complaints as far as the weather is concerned. And I think so many people are all saying the same thing. It's about time too, isn't it?
We do feel like that, Ruth. Thanks very much indeed. Now, just before we go, let's go back to our top story in the scenes in Ely overnight. Our correspondent, Dean Thomas Welch, is there for us this evening. Dean, is there a fear around what might be ahead this evening?
Yes, Andrea. Well, that vigil is still ongoing, as I said, around 50 to 100 yards just that way from where we're positioned. More and more people are going to that vigil, and there is a sense that, that vigil will carry on for a number of hours this evening. Now, while we've been on air, neighbours have been offering each other to put their cars in each other's driveways and gardens to try and make them safe. So there is a feeling that there's a potential that something could happen this evening. Obviously, residents will be hoping it's nothing like what happened yesterday evening.
Dean, thank you very much indeed for the update this evening there. And that is at Wales at 6. Ness Jenkins is back with an update for you after the news at 10. For now, though, do have yourselves a nice evening. Bye-bye.